privacy, digital currency, and what you ought to know. Executive Order 14067, March 14, 2022, Volume 87, Number 49, within the Federal Registrar. Presidential document, meaning the Executive Department, hence Executive Order. Executive orders are applicable to specific departments to which it is issued under. There's a lot that you need to know regarding this Executive Order 14067, based on emergency powers, and how it can potentially casually blend into the other part of government called the Congress, the ones that actually passes law. If you have yet to read this and you are spending some type of currency or earning some type of currency or using any type of currency at North America as a medium of exchange, you might be a little bit behind in what really is and what is about to hit everyone now and the future generation. See, most of what people anticipate as a future reference is already here. It is definite, not speculative or anticipatory. How come no one who speaks about currency, status correction, SBC, name correction, discharge, related to money and status? How come this has failed to be entertained? Because surely this will affect them and their daily life activities if they've yet to really figure out the right way to do things beyond self-immolating ignorance with guise of false competence. Otherwise, one is well-seasoned meat to be placed on a dining table to be consumed by the system that they hate so much. Things like this ought to be paid close attention to, and before it gets worse, people ought to question themselves and ask, how can I use things that I know regarding trust? How can I use things I know regarding the foreign aspect of said trust? Or even better, how can this be stopped by the people by comprehending our laws are passed? 16 basic steps that we went over on Patreon. Did you know that the US dollar itself will be digitized as a way to keep up with other digital wallets? The US dollar is going to be digitized. See, digital currency is already used to communicate amongst banks, but people at this point still has the ability to actually get physical cash. The unique thing about physical cash is it cannot be traced. When digital currencies now gets in the hand of the people rather than in between a communication system of banks, whereby the people themselves are given a substitution of some form of banking, what happens is it abrogates privacy in ways beyond what anyone could ever think. But let's make certain foundational things clear that people are already aware of, such as Bitcoin, which is digital in nature. See, Bitcoin itself, it's a venue to store monies and transfer it under acceptance that its value would either increase or decrease. Therefore, some people either use it synonymous with stock market one way or the other, or people just use it as a vehicle to transfer monies from one currency to the other, from one part of the world to another. Now, other types of digital currencies actually exist. Bitcoin itself is really not the currency. It's just the medium that's used through the wallet. But other specific digital currencies exist, like Amazon, Facebook, Home Depot. These entities have their own currency to stimulate their own internal economy. And these things are going to be widespread as time goes on. See, this whole digital currency thing is like electricity. Once upon a time in the past, we all use it ever so often now. But imagine when people were first introduced to the concept of electricity. They weren't too familiar with how it works, but now everyone uses it ever so casual. It probably will be best for you to comprehend the foundational principle as to how it's going to affect you positively or negatively. Back then, there were probably people who said, look, there's some frequencies that certain bulbs release that kills the health in the cells. The body has a natural tendency to heal itself, but these frequencies of this flickering light, sometimes you might even see it, sometimes you don't. And most lights flicker. They don't stay still as a bright light. It literally flickers. It's an up and down frequency, and an up and down frequency as it hits your body, your skin, it's going into your cell, and it's killing your natural body's ability to heal itself. It slows down your healing ability, and thus you age quicker, you get sicker, it affects you on a nerve level the more you're exposed to it. Some people probably brought that up in the advent of electric light bulb and whatnot back then. It was either ignored or not. But later down the line, there are alternatives that came through, and people use it. Some people are still clueless to these basic facts. Well, same thing applies with digital currency. There's ups and downs to it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ups and downs. So Bitcoin itself is not a digital currency because Bitcoin itself is not used as a direct medium of exchange. It is simply a way to store and convert currencies. It is a medium of storage and exchange of currency via wallet. And each venue can potentially have their own currencies only usable within set venues. With that basics out of the way, let's pose this question to ourselves once more. Did you know that the US dollar itself will be digitized? It's already in motion with this Executive Order 14067. It's not really that long. It's only a couple of pages. I implore you to read this, because this is going to change the future of how money works. If you're not aware of it, the catch-up game that you'll be playing will be synonymous with the catch-up game most people are playing when it comes to freedom and rights in today's world. When it comes to privacy, and most importantly your affairs, you need to know this. Digitizing the US dollar is not going to create a new currency. I'll say that again. Digitizing the US dollar does not create a new currency. Instead, what it does is it creates a medium to which existing currency, aka the US dollar, will be exchanged. It is a change of ledger. Instead of the ledger being your bank statement showing what was withdrawn, what was stored, and the bank not knowing what the cash was subsequently used for unless you show your own bookkeeping through your own accounting, through voluntary confection, based on what type of entity you're using when you fill those IRS forms out, right? Digital currencies, on the other hand, shows everything by default. Everything you directly do. In other words, it takes not having control of your monies and labors to the next level. Digital currencies takes you not having control of your monies and labors into a next level. Is it still unclear? Don't worry. Here are simple instances to make it clear. When the dollar gets digitized, not if, but when the dollar gets digitized, it effectively becomes a bank account of its own, directly controlled by the Federal Reserve through its subsidiaries like any given local bank. Again, it's not a new currency. It just changes how the ledger is tracked in favor of the one who holds primary interest to said currency, which is the Federal Reserve. There's nothing federal about it, and there's no reserve. It's an outside agency. But rather than the voluntary honor system of bookkeeping on the end of the one using the dollar, since the medium of exchange is now digital, it tracks everything you buy directly and monitors your behavioral pattern, your spending behavioral pattern. See, cash is not traceable, digital currency is. If you buy a book or a cookie with cash, or you donate it to some organization with cash, it has no trace of its origin when it comes to cash as to where that cash went. The only thing that is shown is that the bookkeeping of the sellers of those books or cookies, it just shows that a certain amount came in. If you want, you can use an alias or not. Sometimes no name is registered. If you go into a store and bought a cookie, is any name attached to that cookie? No. It just shows the ledger of bookkeeping, that's a receipt of it. Literally, a receipt of the bookkeeping and ledger at that store is given to you as a form of receipt. It doesn't show who it's coming from. It just shows you gave them cash, and that's it. And you receive this in turn, which is the product. But a digital currencies, it shows your identity of who bought what at what time. And privacy goes out of the window by default. As a result of this, those who control the digital currency can control whether to block certain items from being bought. For instance, if you use digital currencies to buy a lot of books, regarding privacy or any specific subject matter, and knowing how taxes work and etc. And someone within that bank decides, you know what, we don't want you purchasing this type of products. The digital currencies, they can just simply block certain categories of products to be used with that digital currency. An example is, since it's digital, they know whereabouts of where it was bought, because the digital signature and the digital fingerprint of that currency that was used will let you know the geolocation. And also, each merchant have their own geolocation of where each merchant account is used. So now when you use your own digital currency attached to the merchant account, those on the other end of that digital currency, that digital dollar, now know where you shop, what you bought, the exact time you bought it, how frequently you buy certain items, the physical location where that item was bought from. This is done using something called, quote, stock keeping code. The stock keeping code is what a lot of people loosely call QR code. Those are the weird little boxes that you see. Well, the actual word for it is called stock keeping code. Stock keeping code is just another cute word for saying we're keeping track of stocks. Stocks is not the digital currency. Stocks are the people using a digital currency. Because when it comes to digital currencies, the moment that any SKU, stock keeping unit or stock keeping code, aka a QR code, the moment that is attached to an item, that item, based on usufruct, the right of use, is attached to you. So now you are identified with the items that you bought because that digital currency has your identity attached to it. You effectively become the stock. You see, since digital currencies are traceable, it can be subpoenaed. It can be used against you and have more control over your bookkeeping. No honor system of keeping your own bookkeeping is in place. Now, automatically, everything you do with digital currency has its own form of bookkeeping by virtue of that digital currency, because it keeps record of everything you bought, how much it was, when you bought it, something you might have forgot. Guess what? The digital currency has memory of it. You have less control of your own money. Monies can be taken out of your bank account in the form of taxes, where there's no more honor system of you waiting to file taxes during certain times of the year. You know how stimuluses are used to, quote, stimulate the economy? When they print stimulus check, it's exactly what it is. It's a stimulus. It's stimulating the economy. Well, same thing can be done with digital currencies. For instance, those who have business bank account knows that stimulus occurs for the purpose of the economy by way of them saying, whenever you spend at least 50K within this business bank account, we're going to give you 5K back. They give you incentives to spend more so you can stimulate the economy through your business affairs. But with digital currency, it's the opposite. I mean, I'm telling you, see this executive order? All these things that I'm saying, I didn't just derive it out of nowhere. Read this executive order yourself. Sit back and think. See, a stimulus can now be done with digital currencies, whereby If you don't spend within a specific period of time, you will be penalized for it. So now that digital currency can just disappear. Why? Because you don't spend. Rather than incentive for you spending, if you don't spend, you get penalized for it. So now you're compelled to stimulate the economy with that digital currency by being forced to use it. That term, consumerism, really truly gets triggered in its real sense. I highly urge you to read this executive order and the conglomerate documents and proposal that's attached to it. Read it for your own self. All this G7 digital payment, G7 summit, all these things, read it, look into it, think about it. So now you see the importance of gold for those who know how to use it physically or through a bond market. And as a side note, there seems to be a misconception of what Roosevelt did in 1933 with making gold a contraband, meaning illegal to bear, to hold, and telling U.S. citizens to turn in their gold. See, what he actually did back then was constitutional. Did you know that? Let me show you how. This is how it's a misconception where people say, oh, well, they had everyone turning their gold and they're the bad guys. Listen, the issue and the problem was the people, not Roosevelt. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Those gold back then in 1933, of course, matches up with the bankruptcy, right? With Roosevelt saying, all right, everybody, turn your gold in. Those gold were private properties of people that were taken. But when everyone turned it in, it wasn't just for free. People voluntarily walked up there and gave it to them. Did you know that? Because they were promised $20 and some change. Because that was the price per ounce for gold back then. And guess what was done right after that? They increased the price per ounce from $20 to about 35. So now the quote US profited from it. In other words, it was a form of inside trading that took place. And everyone who turned in their gold for $20 and a little bit of change per ounce were effectively conned by those who claim to be trustees of an entity. See, the issue of taking private property, such as gold or whatever else, is not the issue. Because usually there'll be an incentive, which will be some form of compensation for the worth of whatever per ounce of measurement of what that natural resource is at that point. But know that whenever that just compensation is given according to the constitutional provisions, they will raise deliberately the value of those things that were just seized. And they make capital gains of the difference. When people speak about history of all these things, liberal code, bankruptcy, these are the intricacies they never speak about. These are the realities and the functionalities of the economy and society and how it affects them and how it's tied to law that they never ever speak of. Merely being hype about one thing or the other, this guy's a bankrupt, this is bankrupt. Bankruptcy itself is not the problem. It's the principle of how it works and the dynamics of it that makes it shake and move in society. Bankruptcy itself is not bad, especially in accounting and bookkeeping, if you know how to make it work. Bankruptcy in business is actually good, especially if you are presumed to be a debtor. The question you ought to ask is not whether private property can be taken, and if the just compensation is just or not, especially if inside trading took place whereby they deliberately adjust the worth of what was taken. Fixed inside trading. What ought to be questioned by people is the cause for the taking of the private property, rather than inside trading that took place, or whether the taking itself is just, or whether the compensation is just. The cause would then go back to why the language of any laws exists, or any legalities, which is operation of law, exists, and whether that itself and that act attached to it is constitutional. But if the people don't know how laws are made or the subtleties of things of this nature, it's public record. They're not hiding it. They give you the volume number and everything. They give you the executive number. They put all these notices right in your face as it's happening. But people are oblivious to it. People will rather wait until after the fact and begin to speculate as to one thing or the other, when it's far too late. And when they begin to speculate, they don't even deal with the real matter and issue. New people who come in and start to hear that hype train get lost in the sauce of something completely irrelevant. And the things that you're supposed to be focused on sails away casually. People taking advantage of you just look at you, they smile, and they just turn away like, oh, you still don't get it, and you will never really get it. Pay attention. The world is changing right in front of you, blatantly. We're not saying it's good, we're not saying it's bad. What we're saying is pay attention to it, know the why and how of what's going on now, how it is attached to the past, and what you should be doing. And most importantly, how it affects you, your substantive right, and privacy, and your lifestyle, and what you can do to prevent it from happening. Or if worse comes to worse, it comes to life, how you can actually cope and manage with it. And how you can actually still make things work to your benefit. Because the reality is not everyone is going to be technologically savvy. But there are still some basics that you still need to know to still survive in the long run. You might not have a sense of urgency regarding this now, but in a decade from now, you wish you comprehend the things that are spoken of in the video. And more importantly, your own children. See, children in today's world are born into the age of technology. They're born into the age of Aquarius. They're born into the age of information. It flows through and to them with ease. If they are acclimated to the world of technology and are desensitized to these foundational principles, they'll be no different than someone who's dumb and computer illiterate. Educate your children about how these things are working. But in order for you to do that, you yourself have to educate yourself. When people run their mouth and ramble on about gold, silver, debt, bankruptcy, these are the substance that needs to be uttered, that needs to be known, because it is the substance that affects them. But anyway, that's a very short but detailed summary of digital currency and how it got to this point, and potential repetition of the past, and how it can be dealt with. Believe it or not, it's been mentioned in here. But more so important, I bring your attention once more to this Executive Order 14067, March 9, 2022, Federal Register, Volume 87, Number 49. Read this 10-page document. If what you have to do is read just one section a day, if what you have to do is read one paragraph in one day and walk away, do that. Read one paragraph a day. Do some self-reflection on it. If you don't read this and get this, whatever cloud of what they're trying to do will be effectively used against you. And all these things that you learn about trust, discharge, law, legal stuff, the rights, if you've yet to sharpen your skill to some certain level, you might very well read this document and see nothing. Well, I highly implore you to begin to study, because now is the time competency will assist you. Remember, gold is money and everything else is credit. Whoever issues the credit controls the ledger. And this is precisely what is being done with digitizing the US dollar. Until next time, take care. Truly, really, best of luck. You need it. Beautiful people, I'm inviting you to join my Patreon page. The things we speak of over there are basically synonymous with webinars, each videos, when it comes to the quality of information and the actual aspect of it compared to the one here on YouTube. We speak about residual income and how to sue people to make residual income if you're willing to do that. We speak about tort and garnishment, remove the speculations of maritime lane. We speak about banking, express trust, all the intricacies that are important. We speak about trust-related matters, different types of trust, how to actually function in commerce. We speak about the intricacies of how to actually do the W8 ban and what makes it foreign, what tax treaties are, the stuff people won't tell you about. We speak about things of spiritual nature. We speak of child support, the intricacies of it, how it's all property right, and how cloud of legality is brought to life. Exactly how they do it and how you tackle that beyond speculation. We speak about how laws are made and how it's applicable or not, the intricacies according to the Constitution. We speak about the truth of what most people are fearful and speculative about. We go over the elements of the things that people need to know when they make claims to sue people to make money, either criminally or civil. When it comes to substantive right, we speak about the venue and the playing field that a lot of people don't know that they're stepping into. If you don't know the venue and the playing field you're stepping into, you're in for a world of hurt. We clarify misconceptions. We speak about the intricacies of things we speak here on YouTube, but more in details on Patreon. Basically, stuff that our YouTube are synonymous with things that are for the birds. One on the Patreon are the premium quality things. In the past, we went over IRS manuals in different ways when it comes to the Express Trust 98 number. We went over the intricacies of mortgage, land, title. We went over issues with things like driver's license and the treaties that are the solutions for it based on examples of my own first-hand knowledge and experience. Speaking about trust-related matters, more on child-related issues. We discuss other aspects of things. We discuss how to really come in as a natural person and the fact that there are actually tools that pre-exist that are meant to be used. A lot of people say, well, don't use this, don't use that. Well, do you know that same thing you're running away from is actually the solution? And do you know that's one of the ways and your first step to actually garnish it? We speak about the intricate details of discharge. We speak about things of reality that goes over people's heads. More in discharge, we speak about the functionality of spirituality and cosmology and astrology and how you can actually put it to use. We speak of the what, why, and how, and the importance of a foreign trustee and the resident status. We speak about spiritual things when it comes to plant, the functional aspect of it. We speak of the language of the difference and the truth of legislative fact compared to adjudicated fact and what it really means when it comes to judicial notice. We speak about the lunar mansions, how to put them to use. We speak about tort, U.S. Marshal Service. We upload documents and treaties, original certified copies. Tax evasion. We show the IRS manual that shows the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. We go more in about how to actually make your own pocket bigger in commerce. We show the videos and experience that I have when it comes to discharge and the explanation of it. We show elements and details. We speak of the things relating to holding people liable. Speak about the different intricacies of how these entities are used against you and how you ought to use it and to know the playing field. A lot more that a lot of people are seeking but will not find. Again, each of these videos are synonymous to webinars of their own. We speak about how to get rid of statute of limitation. Most people's remedies, they say, are barred by statute of limitation, but there's a way out to that. We speak about how child supports are private and how and why they want to charge you thousands of dollars for some transcript, how to nip that in the butt, and a different aspect of it in great details and in great increments. Speak about the intricacies of fraud, how to prove it, the different types and the elements to it. Speak about tort. Speak about speak about trust. Speak about the subtleties of invoking equity and how to structure your document, and so on and so forth. Speak about private right, the incorporation doctrine, how people use UCC 1-103207-308, how that really doesn't actually preserve your right, contrary to the speculation that a lot of people throw around, and that your solution is actually in plain sight beyond the volatile and immutable UCC, which, by the way, the UCCs are also copyrighted. We speak about spiritual things in nature, how to use flame, and the functional aspect of beyond make-believe. I show my own first-hand experience in Chancery Court, and so on and so forth, and a lot more to come. Till next time, take care. Best of luck.